On a quiet morning over Athens, Greece, a mysterious and terrifying scene left everyone stunned. At an altitude of nearly 33,000 feet, a Boeing 737 passenger jet kept circling endlessly. The most shocking part was that the aircraft was not responding to any messages from air traffic control. Hours passed with no contact, and the fear in the skies above Athens grew heavier with every minute. Questions began to arise. Had the plane been hijacked? Was this part of a major terrorist plot? Or was there some other unthinkable problem unfolding? The Greek Air Force quickly scrambled 2 F-16 fighter jets to intercept the mysterious aircraft and uncover the truth. As they approached the passenger jet, what they saw shook them to the core. Inside the cabin, there was complete silence, as if time itself had frozen. Passengers sat motionless in their seats, some with their eyes open, others slumped lifelessly to the side. In the cockpit, there was no sign of activity. Then suddenly, the fighter pilot spotted an unfamiliar figure inside the cockpit. He wasn't wearing a pilot's uniform, but he seemed to be trying desperately to understand the controls, perhaps even attempting to save the plane. That man was actually a flight attendant with only limited piloting experience. Unfortunately, the situation was already spiraling far beyond his control. Moments later, the jet banked steeply, began descending rapidly, and eventually slammed into the mountains north of Athens. All 121 souls on board, including both passengers and crew, lost their lives. This was the tragic story of Helios Airways Flight 522, forever remembered around the world as the ghost plane. The flight had originally departed from Larnaca International Airport in Cyprus, carrying 115 passengers and 6 crew members. Its intended destination was Prague, in the Czech Republic, with a scheduled stop in Athens along the way. Most passengers were families and vacationers heading off on holiday. The cockpit crew consisted of a 59-year-old captain, with more than 17,000 hours of flying experience, and a 51-year-old first officer with over 7,500 hours of flight time. On paper, they were a highly experienced and capable team. But behind the scenes, things were not as smooth. The 2 pilots had a strained working relationship. The first officer often complained that the captain's demeanor was harsh and overbearing. The airline's management was aware of this tension. To make matters worse, the first officer had shown difficulties in strictly following checklist procedures, a detail that would later prove to be tragically significant. The aircraft itself was a 7-year-old Boeing 737-300. The takeoff appeared routine, and passengers settled comfortably into their seats. But as the plane climbed through 12,000 feet, an unexpected alarm suddenly blared in the cockpit. It was the takeoff configuration warning system, a horn that should only sound while the plane is still on the ground if the aircraft is improperly configured for takeoff. The pilots were baffled as to why it was going off mid-flight. The captain quickly contacted the airline's operations center to report the issue. Unfortunately, the engineer on the other end was equally confused. He repeatedly asked about the pressurization system, but the captain's vague responses failed to clarify the situation. This crucial misunderstanding delayed the crew from identifying the real problem. Meanwhile, in the cabin, oxygen masks dropped from the ceiling. The air inside the plane had become dangerously thin. Passengers began suffering from hypoxia, a condition caused by lack of oxygen, which slowly paralyzes the brain and body. One by one, they lost consciousness. Soon, the entire aircraft was filled with passengers and crew who were either unconscious or barely responsive. Communication with the ground completely ceased. On autopilot, the plane continued climbing and leveled off at 34,000 feet. Both Nicosia and Athens controllers tried frantically to make contact, but no one answered. That was when Greek fighter jets were deployed. When the F-16 pilots pulled up alongside the ghostly plane, they saw a chilling sight. The captain's seat was empty. The first officer was slumped unconscious at his controls. The passengers sat eerily still, masks dangling from their faces. Then, movement. A flight attendant named Andreas Prodromou entered the cockpit. Andreas held a commercial pilot's license and had received training at flight school, but he was nowhere near qualified to operate a large Boeing 737. He donned a headset, tried to radio a Mayday distress call, but in his weakened state, he forgot to press the transmit button. That tiny mistake meant his desperate call for help was never heard.
He struggled to gain control, but as the minutes passed, the plane began to run out of fuel. One engine flamed out, then the other. With no power left, the 737 descended uncontrollably and crashed violently into the mountains outside Athens, ending the flight in catastrophe. Investigations later revealed that the disaster was caused by a seemingly small but fatal oversight. The day before, a ground engineer had run a pressurization test, switching the system from auto to manual. After finishing, he forgot to switch it back to auto. The next morning, the pilots failed to notice the incorrect setting during their pre-flight checks. Because of this, the cabin never pressurized properly, oxygen levels plummeted, and everyone on board slowly succumbed to hypoxia. This was more than just an aviation tragedy. It became a harsh wake-up call for the entire airline industry. In the aftermath, airlines worldwide tightened checklist protocols, expanded pilot training on hypoxia and pressurization awareness, and reinforced safety procedures to prevent such an error from ever happening again. Helios Flight 522 will forever be remembered as the ghost plane. It stands as a haunting reminder that in aviation, even a single missed switch, a moment's lapse in vigilance, or a small human mistake can lead to unimaginable loss. The 121 lives lost serve as a sobering lesson that air safety depends not only on advanced technology, but also on human responsibility, precision, and constant alertness.